This is a tutorial for question 1 on paper 3, modern depth study, which for us is Weimar and Nazi Germany. And question 1 is the source inference question. And this question should take no more than 5 minutes. So the question asks you to give 2 things you can infer from a source about a particular part of the course. In this case, you're being asked to make 2 inferences from a source about the treatment of Jews during Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass in November 1938. You're not being tested on your knowledge here, you're being tested on the skill of being a historian, and in particular your ability to make an inference. An inference is an educated guess. What does the content of the source suggest to us? So in order to answer this question, you will use the source, and it is always source A. Source A is in your answer booklet, it is not in the separate sources booklet. So how you tackle this question is you read through the source, and as you're reading through the source, you try and think of 2 sentences in this source that you could draw an inference from. At 2:30 in the morning, Nazis in uniform broke down the door of the house where I was staying. We were ordered to get dressed quickly with the bedroom door open. We were marched through the streets. Nazis were knocking down the synagogue, and all the Jewish shops had been broken into. In the town square, Jewish people were lined up and were made to stand for over 3 hours. 2 old men had their walking sticks broken by the Nazis. The Nazis had a register to check that all the Jews in the town were there. So I know I've got to find 2 sentences that I can make an inference from, each of them, about the treatment of Jews during Kristallnacht. So I found 2 sentences and I've highlighted them. We were ordered to get dressed quickly with the bedroom door open. I can make an inference about the treatment of Jews from that sentence. And 2 old men had their walking sticks broken by the Nazis. I can also make an inference from this about the treatment of the Jews. So I've highlighted them. So in your exam, highlight or underline 2 sentences that you can make an inference from based on what the question is asking you about. In this case, the treatment of the Jews during Kristallnacht. I then turn to the writing frame that the exam board gives you. And I go straight to the details in the source question. We don't start at the top here. I then copy out one of the sentences that I'm going to make an inference from. Copy word for word. We were ordered to dress quickly with the door open. My inference for this, something I can suggest about the treatment of the Jews here, is that the Jews were humiliated having to dress in front of people they didn't know. That is an inference, a guess I can make from that sentence. I then need to do the same again. So I go back to my source, find the second sentence that I highlighted, and then write this in the details in the source that tell me this section. 2 old men had their walking sticks broken by the Nazis. And I can infer from this that the Nazis treated the Jews with cruelty. You will notice that I haven't copied out any of the details in the source in the inference section. We write the sentence and then we work out what can we suggest about the treatment of the Jews from that sentence. And this will give you 4 marks out of 4. This was a written source, but you might get a visual source like this photograph here of the Hitler Youth in 1938. Even though it's a visual source, we use the same skills. So the question in this case is, what can we infer from source A about the Hitler Youth? It's not asking you about your knowledge about the Hitler Youth, it's asking you to make a suggestion about the Hitler Youth from what you can see in that photograph. So again, I've highlighted the fact that we can see that the children in the Hitler Youth here are wearing the same clothes and have all got equipment. They've all got the same equipment, they're all wearing the same clothes. So I can make an inference from this about the Hitler Youth. So I would write down the Hitler Youth are all carrying the same equipment. And what I can infer from this, if they've all got the same equipment and they're all wearing the same clothes, is that the Hitler Youth were well organised. The same way we did before with the written source, I then go back to the photograph and I can actually see something else here that I can infer about the Hitler Youth. I can infer that I can see that they're all standing in orderly lines. And as a result of this, I can infer that the Hitler Youth showed discipline. So I can say they're all standing in orderly lines and that the Hitler Youth showed discipline. And that would give me my 4 marks out of 4. Now be careful with this that you don't add things that you know about the Hitler Youth but aren't inferences. So, for example, we couldn't add they're all getting ready for war, because that's not an inference from that particular photograph, even though that might be part of your knowledge that you know from the course. So, final points in order to answer this question successfully and get all 4 marks. Remember that an inference is a guess. What does the source suggest to you about the content focus of the question? You spend no more than 5 minutes on this question, 4 minutes if you can, and then you've got longer on the answers that require you to spend a lot longer on those for the higher marks. You need to make sure you highlight the focus of the question and ensure your inferences link to this. And don't forget to write the details of the source first before making your inference. Be careful that you don't repeat the details in the source when you are making the inference. Use different words to work out what does that part of the source suggest that you can make an inference from.